As a car drives by very loudly, as a car drives by really loudly. Oh, that stinks. Great way to start a show, huh? All righty, folks. Great way to start a show, huh? Oh, we're good. Our audio's good. We're going to tweet out the link one more time. Riveting television. What's that from Ted? My bad, Chamish. I was sending a tweet. I got capitalized voice of college football. Let some people pile in here. Alrighty, folks. My name is Zach Romelius. You are here for Missouri Live at the voice of college football. We're here. We're getting ready for the last week of the season. It'll be the last post game we do besides the bowl game until next year. It's bittersweet, man. Every time you get to this time of the year, it feels like it flew by. College football is my favorite sport. I follow it intensely. I follow everything. I follow analytics. I follow just different podcasts, in the network and out of the network. No free shout outs here, but subscribe and like video to these channels, guys. I mean, there's a lot of people putting in a lot of hard work, very knowledgeable, very smart people putting in work around the voice of college football, and we're only going up. I've been doing this for 4 years. I remember when Mark started this. When I started, he needs somebody to do Bama. It was hard not to know everything around Alabama football at that time. We opened up a Mizzou channel. We're opening up so many different channels now that we're just expanding. We're not going anywhere. And, it's just bittersweet every time you come to the end of a season. You get to rivalry week. It's a weekend that you look so much forward to, especially some of the rivalries. We're getting Texas A&M back. Like, that's going to be amazing in Kyle Field. Auburn, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Arizona State, Arizona has huge stakes for the first time in a long time. Don't know why USC, UCLA don't play this weekend. That's a little weird, but whatever. Oh, because USC plays Notre Dame. Duh. We used to get like Washington State, and like Clemson, South Carolina is a huge game this weekend. Who would have thought that 6 weeks ago? It's just bittersweet when we get to this time of the year, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's going to be awesome, but let's turn back the clock a couple days. Final thoughts on the game in Starkville. I went back and watched it yesterday just to kind of put ideas into place. That was the closest to last year's offense. My shoe has a hole in it. That we've seen all year, because they were consistently in both halves just forcing the football down Mississippi State's throat. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew what they could do, and they did it very effectively. They didn't get the explosives in the run game that they had with Cody Schrader last year, but that was the closest to last year's offense we've seen. They hit some deep shots. Marquise Johnson caught a big pass. Luther Burden caught a couple big balls. Theo Weiss was dependable as always. Brett Norfleet had an awesome play. It was called back by penalty, but it was a really awesome play with like 50 yards of yak. It was just a really well-played performance offensively. It was the closest we saw to last year. And it gives me a lot of hope that maybe next year we don't need 10 weeks or 9.5, because the second half against South Carolina, they picked it up. But we don't need 9.5 weeks of whatever that was. And I know some of it was Drew Pine, but backup quarterbacks, you don't have to put up 0 points against a Alabama defense that just got carved up by OU, or 10 points against the Texas A&M defense that got carved up by Peyton Thorne. barely squeaking by Boston College. Not barely squeaking by. They handled that game, but barely squeaking by Vandy. And I think they know what they need to do next year. And I think they'll have a good stable of running backs. We'll talk about who's leaving as we get closer to the end of the show. But I like Kawan Lacey a lot. I like Jamal Roberts, except for the big fumble in the OU game. He's been very good this year. I think they have a very promising backfield. Holy cow! And I think at O-line, Connor Tollison's coming back. Hessmeyer can come back. Mitchell Walters can come back. I'm pulling up the roster because you hear so many things. Like I read a lot of Mizzou things. I see a lot of Mizzou things, and it's still sometimes confusing who has years left, who doesn't have years left. So I have the whole roster pulled up because I don't know, like Mitchell on the Mizzou's. This is coming from Mizzou's website. I trust Mizzou's website, but Mitchell Walters can come back. Where is my boy? Drake Hessmeyer can come back, and I thought he filled in well for Connor Tollison. Tollison can obviously come back. Cameron Johnson and Marcus Bryant can't, but I think if you can find a tackle, and Marcus Bryant really struggled this year. Sometimes guys are meant to be AAC or maybe like ACC. Like there's a difference between being good in the AAC or the ACC or even the Big 12 on the line. Like I'm pretty sure a good wide receiver in the Big 10 or the Big 12 could be a good wide receiver in the SEC. But it's just different on the O-line, and he just didn't quite do it. And Cameron Johnson will be gone. But watching the game back, like Mitchell Walters, I thought played a pretty good game. I think Drake Hessmeyer played a pretty good game. Caden Green's going to come back. Tollison will come back. And if Membu comes back, that's a big O-line. And if Reichert might be ready to play, if they need a guard and Walters just can't hack it, they're going to be a pretty good O-line. So I'm feeling pretty good, ZOU, sir, about the run game next year after watching the Mississippi State game. The passing game, a little less. I talked about this a little bit Saturday. I think Josh Manning's a dude. I don't know how good of a dude, but I think he's a dude. I think he's got a lot of potential. They have guys behind them that are ready to go. Mookie Cooper can come back. I know he can come back for 2025. I don't know if he will, but he can. Mekhi Miller can come back. Mekhi Miller's, really up and down Mizzou career, and he's dealt with a lot of injuries. But Courtney Crutchfield and James Madison and all these guys they've brought in recruiting-wise, like, now's the time to take a step. And I'd be shocked if they didn't go out into the portal and try to find the best wide receiver they can just to be a number one or even a high-quality number two if, like, a Josh Manning takes over or Mekhi Miller or Mark, because they'll have Marquise Johnson, they'll have Mekhi, they'll have – and this is all presumably because the portal is a thing. But they'll have dudes at receiver. I just think they need a proven guy. And I think in the slot would not be a bad idea, a proven slot guy. But it's the portal. I don't want to speculate. We have 11 months. Portal opens, mid-December? So we'll have 8 months to talk about the portal and recruiting. So I'll leave that there. But I'm a little less confident in the passing game next year. It would be huge if Brett Norfleet could take a step and really become an elite tight end. He's shown flashes each of the last 2 years, but just not consistent enough. We need it his junior year because Mizzou hasn't had a good tight end. I mean, Albert O in 2017 and 2018 was very good. In terms of red zone targets, between the 20s, he didn't do quite a lot. And that's why he had 100 touchdowns. But if you can make him and throw him to the 20s, like Chase Kaufman was, like Martin Rucker was, like Michael Agnew was, like all these great Mizzou tight ends, Mizzou's offense has a chance next year. And we'll see what they do at quarterback. Again, not going to get into it. We have months of portal talk coming ahead of us. So, and roster talk and who's going to play and who's that. So, but my final thoughts on Starkville really is I think the offensive line and the run game are in good hands. I'm really a little worried about the pass game, and not just from the quarterback standpoint. Let me see. I think Norfleet should be this offense. He's not as good as Brock Bowers. I mean, let's just be fair. He's just not. I mean, Brock Bowers was a freak. Even his freshman year, he was a freak. I mean, yeah, just a monster. I mean, he caught that. I mean, in his sophomore year, he was doing those ridiculous catches against Ohio State. But yeah, he has the potential to be a really good player and be an all SEC caliber tight end. And he shows it at times. Like every time he gets the ball, he wants to hurdle. And I think he tweeted after the game, like the why, but like he just tweeted why. He loves hurdling, but it needs to be more consistent. And I'll be a little more confident in the pass game because a good tight end would be a really good safety blanket. And of course, thank you guys though for tuning in. If you don't know, you can catch Missouri Live on your favorite audio platform: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, Deezer. Never heard of that, but if you use it, good for you. Should be the focal point of the offense. I don't know about focal point, but a focal point. Like he should be kind of what Theo Weiss was this year, kind of your possession guy. Really, the tight end's gotten taken over by slot receivers because slot receivers have become so much more of possession guys. But yeah, and you saw last year with Mookie Cooper a lot. Like Mookie Cooper had a lot of catches, not for very many yards because he was just consistently picking up 6-7 yards. But yeah, no, he should be a focal point, and he's going to be one of the more experienced targets on the team. So it's like him and Marquise Johnson, so unless they get a guy from the portal. So don't disagree. And he could have a huge year. It's just what can you do? But that's kind of my final thoughts on the game in Starkville. You know, a game Mizzou got out in front, kind of, kept Mississippi State arm's length away and got a win. Eli was a little jerk during the game, telling Mississippi State to just shut. I'm sure you've seen the clip if you're watching this show. Or I'll score on you. He should have just scored. Just score, man. I run it up. Like, teams are going to run it up on you when they get a chance. Just run it up. But done with Starkville. We got Turkey Thursday, so I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving, and Pig Saturday. I miss it this game's out on Black Friday. I used to always go to it. I went to 4 straight Arkansas. No, 3. I went in 14 when they won the SEC East. That was fun, even though it was not a fun game to be at for 3.5 quarters. I went 16 with about 15 other people, not like me and 15 friends, like 15 other people were at that game, and Mizzou came back to win 24-7. And then I was they were down 24-7, and they came back and won. And then I was at 2018 when it was freezing cold and raining, and Drew Lock senior day, and they won. They blew a Chad Morris team out 38-0. So, and then in 2020, Mizzou beat Arkansas in one of the best games I've ever watched. And then 2022, Mizzou squeaked by the Hogs again. Mizzou's kind of owned this rivalry since it reinvigorated in 2014. Like, I know Arkansas media will kind of downplay it, but like 2014, Mizzou was better and they won. 2015, Arkansas was better and Arkansas won. Just going year by year. 2016, Arkansas was better and they lost. So I'll grant that because Arkansas fans, media always like doing well, we just don't care, and we're better, but we just lose that game. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go year by year. And like 2017, Mizzou was better, and they won. 2018, 19, Chad Morris. I don't even need to get into it. 2020, teams are pretty even. Mizzou was a little bit better, I think, but they won. 2021, Arkansas was much better, and they won. 22, they both finished 6-6. So, like, Mizzou almost beat Georgia and all this other stuff. So, and then last year, obviously, Mizzou was just better, and this year Mizzou's better, so they should win this game, and we'll get more into it. But yeah, it's gonna be weird to send on Black Friday. I always used to love going. Like I said, I went for 3 straight home games when I was in high school and college, and it was just fun to go to. Like it is a rivalry game. Fans, except for 2016, showed up. 2018 fans actually had a decent turnout considering the weather, and it was like a 7-4 Mizzou team that just. Whatever. It was Drew Lock senior day, but that was all that kind of people cared about with that one. But I like this rivalry. I like games on weird days. Like I used to love the Egg Bowl being on Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure Lone Star used to be on Black Friday, didn't it? Am I misremembering that? I remember Gerard Johnson running in a touchdown against Colt McCoy, Texas on Black Friday. Or was it Thanksgiving night? I don't remember. And I know Georgia Tech this year is on a Friday. But like Nebraska, Iowa, it was on Friday. Like Minnesota, Wisconsin, I know this year's on Friday. Like I just like, I have to work now, unfortunately, but being able to kind of sit back and watch football. But Arkansas comes into the game. They are bowl eligible, and we'll do some more thoughts on the rivalry. After beating Louisiana Tech this past Saturday, so they get to bowl eligibility. We'll see if that saves Sam Pittman's job. I don't know that it will, because is that the goal at Arkansas? I'm confused about what Arkansas, the goals are as a team or as a program. Like there are some programs, I don't know if they're honest with themselves. And to be fair, I put Mizzou in this category too. For Arkansas football, do they consider 7-8 wins a success? Because they should. They're in that third tier kind of with Mizzou in terms of program. Both teams can have great years. We saw it with Mizzou last year. Arkansas in 2021 won 9 games, had a really nice year. And they had the 8-win year under Bielema where they lost, I think, at the Belk Bowl to Virginia Tech. And, they should have beaten Mizzou. Like, they should have won 10 games that year. But what are I don't know what the expectations are there. So I think you should, and then you add the context of, and then you add in the context of, I don't know if any jobs are going to come open. Florida's not coming open. I'm just talking SEC. Florida's not coming open. Obviously, none of the top teams are coming open. Mizzou's not going to come open. OU after Saturday's definitely not going to come up, and I don't think they were anyway. Arkansas, maybe Kentucky, and how tempting is going to if they just kind of want to push Mark Stoops out the door, which I have fought against because I'm like, okay, he wins you 7-8 games a year, he's the best coach in Kentucky history, not named Bear Bryant. But I kind of get it now. It's just sometimes things get stale. I don't know. If that job's open, can you get John Summerall from Tulane? Can you get another up-and-coming coach? Do they want to bring back Barry Odom? Barry Odom's had some nice success at UNLV. I'll tell you, that would add some spice to this rivalry. I'm just not sure what the expectations are if they're going to bring Pittman back. I don't think I would, because I think you've already made up your mind. I think Arkansas has basically told themselves, if he misses a bowl, he's gone. And when you're at that point and you're Arkansas, just let the guy go. I mean, is what it is. I don't think Sam Pittman's a bad coach or anything. I just don't think he's a good head coach. He's obviously a great O-line coach. But Arkansas comes in this year. They're 6-5. We're just going to kind of go some basic stats. They're averaging 31 points a game with old Bobby Petrino. That's up, actually, from 26 points a game last year. The offense has noticeably taken a step forward. Taylon Green is Taylon Green. He's exactly who I thought he was going to be coming into the SEC. He's completing 60% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's exactly who I thought he was, which is there are going to be some games where you're going, is that Walmart Cam Newton? Obviously it's not Cam Newton, but it kind of looks like Cam Newton with just a little less shine on it. Scuffed Cam Newton, And then there are some games where you're like, is that the worst player in college football? He did get benched at Boise State last year, and Boise State is playing a guy who looks like a Viking and is 2 wins away from the college football playoff. Now, I know Ashton Jeanty is a huge part of that. I get that. And he's a Heisman finalist, and good chance he should win it. But, yeah, he's exactly who I kind of thought he was. I mean, he had a big game against Mississippi State. He stunk against LSU. He's just very inconsistent. Last week against even Louisiana Tech, he was 20 for 37. But he did run the ball 6 times for 61 yards. He has legs. He is a big quarterback. College Football Reference has him at 6'6", 215. I doubt he's that light. But the Arkansas run game is something to worry about. Jaquindon Jackson, the transfer from Utah, he's not an NFL back. He's not like an all SEC running back, I don't think. But that dude runs hard, and he runs for contact, and he is a load to bring down. He's kind of like Cody Schrader last year. I mean, he's obviously not having the year Cody Schrader had, but because he's not going to finish 8th in the Heisman. But Jackson is a load to bring. I mean, he's averaging 5.5 yards per carry, 12 touchdowns. He's the focal point of their offense and then their run game. Bobby Petrino is going to have some decent schemes up, especially with QB run game with Taylor Green. So Mizzou really is going to have to do a good job of shutting that down. It's going to be senior day. It's going to be emotional. We'll get into the senior day stuff here in a second. But if Mizzou wants to win this football game, they're going to have to shut down the run game. And they should win this football game. Arkansas, I think is a better team than they get credit for. That loss to Oklahoma State, they dominated that game. Like, if you played that exact game 10 times, Arkansas wins 8. Because Arkansas was bigger, faster. They just could not stop being Arkansas. They played A&M close. They beat Tennessee. LSU kind of whipped them. They whipped Mississippi State. Ole Miss whipped them. Like, they were just never in that game. And then they played Texas tough. Like, Arkansas is not a bad football team. I just don't think they're one that you should lose to at home, providing, like Brady Cook plays and Luther Burden plays. And defensively for Arkansas, it's the same guys I feel like that have been there forever. I don't know. But Landon Jackson is just a damn good player. He just he's just a good football player. With his smooth bald head. 6.5 tackles or 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss. He's a good player. And Mizzou, what makes me more confident about this game than I was like a month ago, Mizzou did a really good job against South Carolina neutralizing Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard. Kyle Kennard didn't have a sack until like Mizzou's desperation drive. So I think they did a really good job on them, and I think they can do a pretty good job on Landon Jackson. And Landon Jackson's a good player. He's going to make a play. Like, he just is. But otherwise, Arkansas, just not a super explosive defense. It's not a great defense. They're 67th in points allowed per game. They play hard. That I don't think Travis Williams gets them to play hard, but I just don't think they're a particularly good defense. Mizzou should be able to put up some points if they run the offense and play offense the way they have the last couple weeks. Get the ball in space to your playmakers. Lean on your run game. Lean on the depth of your run game. They have 4 running backs. No update on Koan Lacey. I know he left the game early Saturday. So you have at least 3, maybe 4 running backs you trust in different situations, like Nate Noel between the 20s, Marcus Carroll in the red zone, and Jamal Roberts kind of whenever you feel like it. Lean on that. Get your playmakers the ball in space. Hit your deep shots, Brady Cook. And I think Mizzou should win this game, not comfortably. I don't think they're going to blow Arkansas out or anything. But they should win. It should never be a worry after, like, the third quarter. Arkansas is going to come to fight. They're 7-5, and if they can knock Mizzou down to 8-4, they have a legitimate argument and can be like, hey, we were a better team than you this year. We just had a tougher schedule. And I wouldn't necessarily argue against it too much because they beat you on your home field, and they only lost one more game than you, and they also had to play LSU. They had to play Tennessee. Like, their schedule was much tougher. So it's a game they're going to want to win, man. Like, Mizzou has just beaten them up for so long. And that's the next point I want to get into. What are my thoughts on this rivalry? Arkansas fans will claim it's a fun back and forth on Twitter, one I've taken part in. It's a fun little debate on Twitter. Arkansas fans and media will claim Mizzou's not a rival because they're above Mizzou, which in basketball, sure, I won't argue that. Mizzou basketball stunk for a decade. Football, you haven't won 10 games since 2011, and that got vacated. So what? You've won 8 games. I think they won 8 games twice since then. I think 2015 with Bielema. 16, or maybe 3 with Bielema, 2 with Bielema, and 1 with Pittman. I know Chad Morris destroyed that program for a while. Still kind of feeling the lingering effects of it. But it's just not a good football program. And I'm not claiming Mizzou's some all-time great football program, but like right now, Mizzou's in a much better spot than Arkansas. And so Arkansas fans will claim, like, in media, I mean, my God. I know I probably shouldn't say this. I'm going to get in trouble, and I apologize. There are Mizzou websites and blogs that I don't agree with all the time. Like, I think their takes and their points, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of. I will never doubt Mizzou's media's professionalism. Some of these other fan bases who work for the same websites, borderline fanboys disguised as journalists. And Arkansas is one of the big ones. I don't think journalists are allowed to cry after losses, but it just is what it is. Like, and I'm not talking about guys that are like radio hosts. Like, that's its own thing, you know. I know there's one big one who said he would quit his job if Mizzou beat them last year in their stadium. You know, he's a radio guy. Like, he works for like literally a fan site, so that's whatever. But there are guys that work for like sites that are supposed to be reputable, and they are straight up fanboys, and it's a little concerning. And I appreciate Mizzou, and they're not the only ones. Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kansas State's a big one. Kansas State's just that media base. It's just all cheerleaders. But they'll claim it's not a rivalry, like, oh, we're above Mizzou. You know, our real rivals, Arkansas or LSU, which I'm just like, LSU doesn't think – LSU's main rival's Bama and Ole Miss. You're an afterthought to that. Like, why? Like, you're not on their level, and right now you're not on Mizzou's level. They're just not. Now, if they win Saturday, that changes. Because you beat a Mizzou team that's ranked in the top 25, was in the top 10, you beat them in Faroe, and you won in Faroe for the first time ever. You know, then there's a conversation to be had. But Mizzou fans will retort back with, like, you're not our rival either. You're just a free win at the end of every year because we're like 8-2 against you since this thing started back up. Mizzou has owned Arkansas. It is a rivalry, though. Like, there's no debate. It's like Mizzou-OU. Like, Mizzou is not OU's biggest rival, obviously, but it is a rival. In football, you know, Mizzou's biggest rival isn't OU. It's not Arkansas. It's Kansas. And what hurts is Kansas, for the most part, stinks, and they're on a heck of a run to end the year. But I don't know. This narrative that comes from Arkansas media and fan base just kills me because it's like, we always beat you and we're better than you 7 out of every 10 years. Like, why are you acting so elitist? Everyone in the West doesn't think you're anything. Like, Texas A&M doesn't care about you. Ole Miss doesn't care about you. Alabama certainly doesn't care about you. LSU, it used to be big, and then you guys got terrible, and LSU has remained a pretty elite program despite Brian Kelly happening. Whatever. But, like, Arkansas, Mizzou, it's a fun rivalry for, like, that fact because it's just Arkansas getting their skull caved in every year and them going, oh, we just didn't care about the game. You just didn't care. Sure. Yeah, and Eli cares about this game. He has made it a point of emphasis to care. And you're seeing it pay off because they went into Arkansas and got the number 1 player in the state in Courtney Crutchfield. Eli cares. Arkansas fans treat LSU treated Arkansas. Yeah, we kicked your butts every year. Like, oh, you don't care. Okay, great. We're kicking your butts. So did you only care the years you won when you were clearly better? Whatever. It's just a fun little thing, you know. It's sports, guys. Like, we don't got to take it that seriously, but it is what it is. The line on this game is 3.5. I think that's probably about right. I'm not too confident in this game. I'm not as confident as that would lead you to believe, because I don't know. I think they have Arkansas is a good team, or a better team than they've shown in some games, like Texas game. Like, that game was close, but not really. Obviously they beat Tennessee, which is a great win. They beat Kentucky. They beat the crap out of Mississippi State, but so did Mizzou. Like, Ole Miss destroyed them. Like, how good is Ole Miss after they lose to Florida on the road? Maybe it's just Lane Kiffin teams don't focus as well as they should, but which SEC, like, what happened this weekend, man? Mizzou just had not lost that game to South Carolina. They might be in it. I doubt like they would have made it because you got killed twice, but God, yeah, it's going to keep me up at night. Anyway. Yeah, maybe. They should have won that Oklahoma State game. They just should have. I remember watching that game and just mouth just like, how did you lose that? They shouldn't. How do you lose that? How did they lose that game? Like, if you go back and look at the stats from that game, they outgained them. They doubled them in yards. They had 648 yards to 385. They ran for 232 compared to Oklahoma State's 59. 33 first downs to 21. 3 turnovers. Killed them. Jaquindon Jackson was awesome. 24 carries for 149 and 3 touchdowns. I was like, oh, so Arkansas is a player. And no, three turnovers to 1, and then they lose in OT. I mean, part of it, Taylor Green, like 416 yards, a touchdown, an interception. I think he ran 18 times for 61 yards. Like, wow, a lot of good stuff there. But then he only completed 58% of his passes. He's a big play guy. He's not a consistent guy, and that's what Mizzou's going to have to do to beat them this weekend and cover that 3.5-point spread, which, again, if you're into betting, you should take a look at this.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Deace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.
Yeah, guys, listen to what the man says. They know what they're talking about. And speaking of Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, you can catch Ole Miss live Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, or post-game live after every Rebels game. Play Mississippi State this week in the Egg Bowl. Always a weird game. We'll see if it's weird this year. We'll see how much motivation Ole Miss has going into it. Again, I thought Lebby would they're going to want – Mississippi State needs that one, man. Like, you need to have something good from your first year. Also, the College Football Show with Mark Rogers, Mark's Call-In Show, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, post-game, late night, Sunday, 11 Eastern. Come in, listen to Mark talk about everything that's happening in college football, coast to coast. And, you know, Mark's one of the smartest guys that he knows what he's talking about. And so it's good to always listen to him and call in if you have a point you want to make. And, you know, have a fun little discussion with the head honcho here at this network. But, of course, the most important thing happening Saturday is several Missouri Tigers will take their final walk out to Faurot Field in front of a sellout crowd and play their final game in a Mizzou uniform for some, or a football ever. It's always a bittersweet moment. You know, I mean, obviously high school is a little bit different. I remember my last game. We lost an OT to Jackson. But there's a lot of guys going to be taking senior day. As far as underclassmen that are going to go, obviously this is going to be Luther Burden's last game as a Missouri Tiger. You know, he came in in 2022 with a lot of promise. You saw it from day one against Louisiana Tech. And he's lived up to the billing, man. He was an All-American, All-SEC, just an absolute monster. Lived up to every bit of hype Mizzou fans had for him. And he's a leader on 2 Mizzou football teams that have a chance to win 10 games. And that doesn't happen at Missouri often. So he's obviously gone. Nothing you can do to bring him back. He'll get over. I hope, and we had this in the chat earlier. And senior day, if Mizzou wins, those seniors get to claim a rock from the Rock M and get carried off the field. It is a cool tradition. If you've never seen it live, it's awesome. It's really fun to see. When we stormed the field after beating Arkansas, we got to help kind of carry the seniors off a little bit, like we kind of rode the crowd. I think even if they lose, they get one, don't they? Because I remember Tennessee in 2015. They got one. They've won so many. I mean, when's the last time they lost the final home game? They beat Florida last year. Arkansas, they beat 22. They beat Florida in 21 to get to got Dan Mullen fired. 20 doesn't matter. 2019, did they maybe? Yeah, they had to have lost it to Tennessee. 2018, they won. I was there. 2017, they won. It was against Tennessee, I think, again. 2016, Arkansas, I was there. 2014, Arkansas, I was there. 2012 was Syracuse. And I think they got it that night anyway because I was there for that one. But yeah, no, it's an awesome tradition, and a lot of guys are going to be carrying rocks off that field. The other underclassman that has any chance of going is Armand Membu. And a lot has been made about Mizzou's NIL money. I would do whatever you can to bring him back. I would like if you brought him back. He's a very good football player. And if you can keep Lamont Rogers, which isn't looking very likely, you have a chance to really have something next year on your O-line. Luther Bird's gone. There's a chance maybe like Dalen Carnell goes. I don't think Dalen's going to go. I think Dalen's a really good SEC football player. I don't know where he plays in the NFL, to be quite honest. But there's a chance he goes. I would hope he doesn't. All Mizzou fans should really hope he doesn't because he'll be a leader again on the defense next year. So, again, I have the Mizzou website pulled up because there's a lot of, you hear some guys have years left. You don't, I thought this was it for Johnny Walker. But according to Mizzou's website, he has eligibility in 2025. So if I'm wrong, blame MUTigers.com. Because I'm literally, I'm not going to show it on my phone, but I'm literally looking at that website just to be 100% certain who's walking and who's actually gone after the year. Tyler Stevens has another year. Mitchell Walters has another year. Cameron Johnson does not. And just talking about Cameron, last year he came in and he really struggled early on. Another case of just because you're really, really good in the AAC doesn't mean you're going to be good in the SEC. And he was a big win for Drink because Drink was going head-to-head with Lincoln Riley for his services. Lincoln Riley coming off of a 10-win season and the Heisman Trophy winner at USC. And he won that battle, got him, and he's been a pretty good player. He's had his ups and downs this year, but all in all, that's a really good, solid recruiting win, and he's been a really solid interior offensive lineman for the Missouri Tigers. When he switched to interior line because he started as a tackle, he's been really good. Joe Moore is going to come back unless he just retires from football. Chuck Hicks, really disappointing year for him this year, but he's been a really solid backup linebacker, experienced. He's just not been great in pass coverage. He punched a kid last weekend. But last year when both Chad Bailey and who's the other? Tyron Hopper went down. He stepped up, him and Newsome, man, and they were dynamite. So a transfer from Wyoming, like how often does that work out? And I think he sat out his first year at Mizzou because he was injured. So again, just another solid transfer portal pickup. And speaking of that, Joseph Charleston, his final year transfer from Clemson. Consistently just a solid presence. It wasn't perfect in the backfield, but he played his butt off. He laid the wood sometimes, and he's been a really good starter. He kind of reminds me of I don't want to say Matt White. If any of you remember Matt White, he would just get torched on boards. But he's just a solid player, as my cats are now starting to fight. Johnny Walker Jr. has another year. A guy, and see, this is the thing. I thought Tristan Newsome had another year, according to Mizzou.com. He doesn't. And and Newsome last year, man, he was a perfect fit at linebacker for Blake Baker's defense. He was just a firecracker out of the backfield, and he got a lot of tackles for a loss. Again, in this defensive scheme, just hasn't had that same type of success. And has been dealing with injury, so is what it is. We'll get to the QB last. Corey Flagg, transfer from Miami. I think maybe outside of Christian Williams, been Mizzou's best player. He's consistently in the right spots. He's consistently making tackles. He's just been a really solid presence and a guy that I didn't have a ton of expectations for. Listening to some outside media, some Miami people and some Florida State people. I don't think he's been the best linebacker in the world. He's not going to be like all SEC or anything. But I think he's been a really steady presence in the middle of that field. Another guy that's been a real big surprise for me this year, Nate Noel. I don't think the year went like any Mizzou fan hoped it would, but Nate Noel was awesome. He may have earned his chance at an NFL spot. I didn't think he was going to be the starter. I thought he was going to be the backup to Marcus Carroll. I thought they would split carries. Like every year, Eli, except 22, one guy has really dominated carries, and I thought that would be Carroll this year. And it's been Noel, and he's just been a seamless fit at times in their zone blocking scheme. Drew Pine, technically a senior, but he has another year of eligibility. He'll battle for the quarterback job, so we'll pine about Drew Pine next year. I think maybe the biggest loss this team's going to see from a guy that definitely can't come back outside of Brady Cook is Christian Williams. Transfer from Oregon, just an awesome presence in the middle of that defense. Has been for a couple years ago, doesn't stuff the stat sheet, but does a great job holding up in the run game. Super athletic. He's just been a really good player for the Missouri Tigers, and his presence will be missed. Mizzou's going to really need a D tackle in the portal because Chris McClellan's a good player, but you need like 2 or 3 guys. Mookie Cooper has another year. Sidney Williams hasn't played a whole lot. This year he only has 29 tackles, 1 tackles for a loss. But, hey, like you need backup safeties, and he's been a very good backup safety. Theo Weiss, I mean, we what more is to say about this, man? I know I'm just going through all the seniors, but, like, what's more can you say? He came from OU. The hope was that he could be a number 2 to Luther Burden, and at times he's been better than Luther Burden. Just as a pure receiver, he's always making big catches. He's showed more speed than I thought he had. Like last year against Florida when he just ran it 85 yards for a touchdown. He's just been awesome, man. He's been way better than I think anyone thought he would, and that's including Mizzou fans and OU fans. When Mizzou got him and the graphic came up that he's committed to Missouri, I thought Mizzou was getting a pretty good receiver. I just didn't know how good. And no, he's been great. Drake Hessmeyer can come back. Marcus Bryant, I touched on him earlier. He does not have any eligibility left. all ACC at SMU, came in and just has kind of struggled. Like I said, sometimes guys are meant to play at a lower level and be awesome, and maybe he earns a spot in the NFL because of that. But it just didn't quite translate to Mizzou, unfortunately. But he's still a starting offensive lineman. Like, he hasn't gotten destroyed every week, so Mizzou's going to need to find a way to replace him. And then Marcus Carroll, the goal line back, traditional like NFL, like Mike Tolbert. You know, he hasn't really been explosive at all this year, but he has 10 touchdowns. Like, double digit touchdowns, 10 touchdowns without getting to 500 yards is pretty impressive. He's just been a plow when Mizzou gets to the goal line, and good on him, man. Like, that's just also a chance, I guess, Connor Tolleson goes to the NFL, but I doubt it. But those are the guys, really, Mizzou's going to be celebrating this weekend, along with Luther Burden and maybe Armin Membu, but I don't think we're going to hear anything about Membu until the winter. This has been a special class, man. Like, these kids, like, a lot of those guys are 2020 recruits, or like Eli's first recruits, or 2019, like Brady Cook. And we didn't even get to Brady Cook. Brady Cook. What more is there to say, man? He played in the bowl game against Army, which is the reason he doesn't have another year. 2022, really up and down. Never really questioned his toughness. And he played well in games like against South Carolina, and he played well in the Arkansas game to end the year. And it turns out he was hurt all year. So, but just awful performances against Kansas State and Florida, and I'm trying to think of some other ones, some other games from that year. I don't even blame him. No, he played okay against Georgia. Ugh. But just our Auburn, he was awful. Just some really awful performances that year. Kentucky, he wasn't very good. And then you get to 2023, man, and it started off poorly for Brady Cook. Like, he did get booed before the K-State game. And I don't think they were booing him. They were booing Eli for the decision to play Brady Cook. But, you know, that still means you're booing your quarterback. And he made one deep shot throw to Luther Burden, and the rest was history. One of the best seasons in Mizzou football history. He was awesome every week for the most part. You know, Georgia, but he was like great against LSU. He was great against Vandy. He was awesome against Florida in the second half, leading them to that win. Played well enough against like Kentucky, who Mizzou never beat. And then this year, just really up and down. But some of that's injury, and he still provided some great moments that Mizzou fans are going to remember forever. Mizzou's not Alabama. Mizzou's not even like OU or some of these programs that really do have national championship aspirations. Sometimes great Mizzou moments are your homegrown quarterback in his last year comes out on homecoming, gets hurt, goes to the hospital, and comes back in the game and beats Auburn, a team you hadn't beaten since joining the SEC. It was them, Mississippi State, and Bama. Now they got wins over two of them. Pardon my language, that kid's a tough son of a bitch. He's going to be missed, man. He's just been a steadying presence, and I've had a love-hate relationship with Brady Cook. He doesn't know who I am. He will never know. I hope he never learns who I am. But you can't doubt his love for the Missouri football program. Let's see. We have a comment here. Brady Cook talking about wearing a Gabbert jersey to Cotton Bowl champions. It's going to be, man, like it's a St. Louis kid, and so is Burden, but it is a legit 3-star St. Louis kid from Chaminade who went from like, oh my God, this kid belongs in the MAC or the Sun Belt to one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, a 10-win season, beat the crap out of Tennessee and got some more big wins, beat Kansas State. Like one of the best seasons Mizzou had. I'm trying to think. I always try to quantify last year's team. It's not the 13 team, and it's not the 07 team, but it might be third in my life. It's ahead of 08. 2010 might have been a better football team, but that loss to Texas Tech, just man. Like, they should not have lost that game. They're up 14-0, for God's sakes. This is what I think about. This is why I like doing this, because I think about games from 14 years ago. So it's like between them and 2010. Like 2014, no. Like, they're maybe the third best team in my life. Like, and Brady Cook was the quarterback for it. And was he the biggest catalyst? No, that was Schrader and Burden. But you have to have a quarterback get those guys the football, and he was great. And he limited turnovers. He had less than in 2022. And in 2022, that was the only thing he did, was not turn the ball over. Just Brady Cook, a true son at Missouri. He's going to be missed, man. Like, his leadership, his poise, and his dedication and toughness. Man, like, all the seniors, LB3, truest sons of Missouri. It's going to be an emotional day. Like, if Missouri can take the next step as a program, and that goes from pretty good to truly a program where every couple of years they're in the playoff hunt, it's going to be because of these guys. Because last year, I mean, obviously, like last year, you had Darius Robinson and Cody Schrader and some awesome players. Cad, Rakestraw, and they're just also going to be a huge part of that. But these guys, like, you follow up one great season with another chance at 10 wins. Like, that still means something. And they didn't let the bottom fall out when it could have. Like, they could have quit. And we'll see how that goes this weekend. But no, man, like, these kids mean a lot to the University of Missouri. And it's going to be because of these kids and the 2022 class, or 2023 graduating class. And if Mizzou ever takes the next step, it's going to, in the next couple of years, it's going to be because of them. Because of them, it's going to be, if Mizzou can get a really good quarterback in the portal, it'll be because of these guys. If Mizzou brings in another elite recruiting class, it's for Missouri standards, it's going to be because of these guys. I think we've hit a point now where I think Drinkwitz is going to coach Mizzou until just the wheels fall off. I don't think he's a candidate for like any other job right now, and I don't think any other job's going to open. Like the biggest job open, maybe LSU. Like, I highly doubt LSU comes open. That's like the only real upgrade job I could possibly see coming open right now, unless somebody goes to the NFL. But that's kind of wishy-washy. This has been an awesome senior class. It's been a pleasure. I watch every game. I have thoughts on every game, even the crappy games. I love watching. That goes for basketball too. I didn't go to Mizzou. The school's a little bit too big for me. I had issues when I was in high school, and I just didn't want to go to a school with that many kids. But I've always loved the school. I've always loved the program. I started going to games when I was in high school when we got free tickets because I went to Mizzou football camps. And I, even in college, doing fraternity stuff, I'd be like, hey, I got to get home. Mizzou's playing. The only year I don't think I did that was 2016 because that team was just painful. That just was a horrible team. But I love this team, man. I love this program, and these guys have brought it back to what I remember when I was a kid, when I was 12, 13, and they were winning 10 games a year pretty consistently. Like 2009, they won 8, and that was super disappointing. 2011, they won 8, and that was super disappointing. It was a program that you thought could win any game. And except like the like Oklahoma, and they beat OU eventually, but in 2012, obviously, 2013, 14, awesome. And after that, it's just been kind of a middling program. And also ran is the word I like use. Like, it was just kind of a program in the SEC. Like, rarely were they ever god awful. Like, rarely were they ever like Vanderbilt at their worst, Arkansas under Chad Morris. They were never that bad. Mississippi State right now, they were never that bad. Like, most of the time they got to bowl eligibility, but they weren't exciting. They weren't like, it was never like, ooh, look out for Mizzou this year. Even in like 2018, when they had a senior Drew Lock and Emmanuel Hall was coming back and Larry Roundtree and Demario Crockett was there too. And they had some good running backs and a pretty good O-line. And the defense actually turned out to be better than I thought it would be. They were still like, still like an 8-4 team, maybe 9-3 if they can beat South Carolina on the road. And hey, lo and behold, or beat Kentucky at home. And lo and behold, they won 9-3. So this senior class has brought Mizzou back into being a program that the fans can be proud of and other people are taking notice of. Tennessee fans hate Eli Drinkwitz. Now, Eli's made some comments about Heupel, and obviously you had the stand on business thing last year, but guys, they don't hate nobodies. And Mizzou's not a nobody, and it's because of these kids. And it's been super fun to watch them play. It's going to be emotional watching them play Saturday. We'll see what happens with the bowl game, who plays, who doesn't. But, I would just take – if you're watching the game, I would take a moment and just really I'm starting to hit some tabs, trying to delete them. I would just really take it in and say, man, like these are some special football players that we may never see again at Mizzou. And with that, I think we're done for the evening. Thank you guys all for tuning in to Missouri Live. We will be back Saturday after the game against Arkansas, win, lose, or draw. Before kind of get that show in before Texas A&M Texas gets really rolling. Because I'm super excited for that one because that place is going to be insane. Thank you guys all for being here. Thank you for being here all season. We ride one more time, and then it's the off season. MIZ, and I will see you all Saturday.